Hey everybody! So we're just going to go ahead and start our review for the official AP exam. So you can see here from the AP Human Geography course description kind of how they broke up the units. So we're going to follow this progression and we'll start with thinking geographically, 8 to 10% of the exam. So just to recall what type of information is in this section, all about maps, geographic data, geospatial technologies, human environmental interaction, scales of analysis, and regional analysis. So looking at our vocabulary for this topic, just a quick review here. Toponym is going to be the name given to a place or geographical location. Cartography is the science and art of map making. Absolute location, the precise coordinates, or it could also be an address. Relative location, on the other hand, which is going to be the position of a place in relation to another place. Small scale map is going to show a larger geographic area with less detail. Large scale maps show a smaller geographic area with more detail. Remote sensing, the process of collecting and analyzing information about an object or area from a distance, typically from satellites or aircraft. GPS stands for Global Positioning System. And GIS, Geographic Information System. So a key area on this section is going to be map projections. And really what we're looking at here is why is it distorted and what type of uses does the map have based on the distortions. So overall, just remember that we're trying to get a 3D representation onto a 2D object and a flat surface, and that's why it's just not going to work. So there's always going to be some type of distortion, and it's going to be either size, shape, distance, or direction. All projections have one of these compromises. So the main ones that I see on the exam typically are going to be like Mercator, the cylindrical map projection. It's going to distort area of land masses relative to each other. And you can see that it's because they basically just think about wrapping a flat piece of paper around the globe. And so it's going to make these areas at the poles look enormous because look at how wide outside of it is there. Robinson, you can kind of remember as the one that is the most well-rounded. So when you see Mercator, you're going to usually see it represented as like a square. It's usually used for like navigation and things like that. Whereas Robinson projection, you can think it's well-rounded and it typically does have these rounded edges. Another very important concept is to be able to tell the difference between large and small scale maps. So a little trick that you can use, even though it doesn't really grammatically correct, is to think of a large scale map as you can fit large amounts of detail into the map. So think about that, really small or large, if you think of it as referring to the amount of detail. So a large scale map is a close-up view of a small area with lots of detail. You can fit a large amount of detail in it. Small scale, on the other hand, shows a large area but less detail. So you could think of it as there's too small of room to put details. So the second module or section of this first unit in the review is cultural ecology. So let's go ahead and take a look at our vocabulary. So two really important concepts here, environmental determinism and possibilism. So, the idea that the environment shapes human culture and activities. And you'll remember we viewed the video Guns, Germs, and Steel, kind of looking at Jared Diamond's theories from his book and video on this. And then on the other hand, the sort of opposite concept, the idea that human choice shapes the environment and outcomes for a society. Now, as you can imagine, in reality, there is going to be an interaction of the two. Another super important concept introduced in this module was the idea of diffusion. So we have, excuse me, these kind of two major categories, and then within an expansion, we have three additional categories. So first, let's look at relocation. So you can just remember like somebody's relocating. A physical move. So occurs when people move from their original location to another and bring their innovations, ideas, and culture with them. So, on the other hand, we have expansion diffusion, which is when a trend or idea spreads from its original source outward. So now we have three subtypes here: contagious, hierarchical, and stimulus. And then the module gets a little bit more detail into that. We have this concept of distance decay, which basically says the interaction between two, locales declines as the distance between them increases. Vernacular region is an area that people believes to exist as part of their cultural identity. Functional region, an area organized around a node or focal point. And then finally, a formal region, an area within which everyone shares a common one or more distinctive characteristics. So, common example for that is going to be like states. Common example for functional region, you might have a train station, or in this image here, it's a college. So you're going to have like a zone around a node of influence, and that's going to be that functional region. Vernacular, you'll commonly see examples like the South of the US. So a little more detail of environmental determinism versus possibilism with this little video here.
Environmental determinism explores how environmental factors like geography, climate, and natural resources have played a significant role in shaping human history and societal development. It states that the environment largely determines the course of human actions and cultural development. It emphasizes the role of the environment in offering possibilities or limitations. Possibilism, on the other hand, emphasizes human agency, innovation, and adaptation. It highlights how societies have made technological and organizational advancements to adapt to or even modify their surroundings.
Okay, so let's get a little more detail on cultural regions. So we talked about kind of those three main kinds. The formal is going to have usually a clear boundary that everyone agrees upon. So, like the state of a US state is a good example. Functional region, nodes such as a city center, local factory, then the functional region would be the employees, or how, whatever area is affected by that node. Vernacular, also sometimes called perceptual regions, very subjective and informal, such as Bible Belt or a tourist hotspot. So, if we were going to sort these, what would you say the Bible Belt? Vernacular. School district is going to be probably functional because it's going to affect the students around it. State of North Carolina, again, states are a great formal region example. Sahara Desert is recognized, with those boundaries. A cell phone coverage area is going to be more of a functional node of influence. The Deep South, it's a perception. A New York City subway system is going to be a node of influence for transportation. The Rocky Mountains is going to be a formal region. It's pretty clear, delineated. Wine country in California, that's probably going to be more subjective. All right. Now, this concept of distance decay kind of helps to have a visual with an X and Y axis here. So you can see this Y axis is going to be how much interaction. So down here on the Y axis, not much interaction, little interaction, all the way up to here, you're going to have really high interaction. This X axis is going to be distance. So as we follow the x-axis, more and more increasing distance. So here we're really close, here we're really far away. So what if we take a point on the graph that is pretty high up on the y-axis, I mean a lot of interaction, but pretty low on the x-axis. So it's going to be high interaction, low level of distance, or short. So if it's close, a lot of interaction. Down here we have a low level of interaction. See, it cuts over on the Y real low. However, quite a bit of distance here. So interesting quote here, everything is related to everything else, but near things are more related than distant things.
Distance decay says that interaction decreases as distance increases, and that less distance creates more interaction. Another way to look at this is that near things tend to be more similar. Some might say that the distance decay model is becoming less applicable as the influence of distance declines due to advancements in widespread wireless technology. This phenomenon is known as time-space compression.
So a good example of that could be, say that there is a type of shoes that I love, um, and it's at a unique Italian vintage store in Milan. I'm not likely to shop there because it's too far away. I'm more likely to go to Payless at the mall because I can get there easily. However, because of time space compression and technology, I can order those shoes on Amazon, possibly from Milan, or directly from the store and have it shipped. So that's kind of what that means as far as the effect being diminished. And you'll see a lot of the models, in AP Human Geography change and become outdated based on where we are now and where we were when they were first thought of. So types of cultural diffusion. Like we talked about, there's these two main categories. Pretty cut and dry, relocation, they moved, physical moving. Expansion, you can remember contagious diffusion. Remember that it spreads like a contagious disease. That's a good way to remember it. So that means it's going to be kind of uniformly expanding out from the source region. And a good example is actually like influenza or diseases. Hierarchical diffusion. This is going to be different because you're going to have that kind of origination, but it's going to actually leapfrog to like nodes of authority or power or like cultural influence. So an example that is actually reverse hierarchical diffusion is rap music, because it developed in urban centers and then sort of did leapfrog out into, pop culture. Stimulus diffusion is the idea, think of something stimulated an idea in another. So, for example, Siberians saw domesticated cattle and then domesticated reindeer.